I would like to continue our conversation about beauty, and let's see where this goes. It's a bit tricky, to say the least, but hopefully I will be able to say something something useful in here, or just show something that might be of a value. So here are two models, and the difference is the wireframe, right? The model underneath is the same. It's the wireframe that is different. And what I wanted to show here with this comparison is the fact that, in my opinion, this looks better. The fact is that this is more elegant, this is more beautiful, and the only difference here is the structure, right? It's the wireframe. So here what we see is randomization. It's a form of chaos, right? It's just things are not they're not predictable, but predictable perhaps is not the right word, because predictability is somewhat boring, but the things that happen here, they are of a somewhat random nature, right? There's very little structure. There is some, definitely, and in most areas there isn't, and that's just the thing about I think about beauty. I think beauty is structure. I think beauty is still order. And if we look at this model, and again, just compare it for yourself, see which one you like better. Do you like this one, or do you like this one? Do you see the difference? And I'm not talking about the difference in terms of just the position of the lines. I'm talking about what is the feeling that you get when you see that compared to this. Which one do you prefer? And prefer doesn't really imply in this case that there is a matter of preference. What I'm trying to do here is say that there is objectivity to this. There is objectivity to beauty. Right? So again, compare this to this. And this is what we've been dealing with during this class, during this video, whatever you want to call it, tutorial or just a discussion on just techniques and whatnot, is that we are trying to minimize that and to bring everything into this. Right, we want to minimize the amount of this jagginess, this just chaotic nature of the surface. Right, I'm running out of words because I don't really want to repeat myself. I don't think they the ones that I used, I don't think they make justice to what I'm trying to explain. It's not exactly chaos, it's not exactly randomization, it's something to do with the feeling, right? Because otherwise it's just impossible to explain those things. And so, for example, here the line, the flow of the line, right? This whole kind of, not angularity, again, it's just it's all semantics. It's this feeling, the sensation that we get, that things are just going nicely, and then there is this, right, there's some kind of disaster. And if we look here, even though the angle changes in here as well, right, it's not just a continuous straight line, it changes, but it's just the elegancy of it, right? It's just the kind of unbroken structure, the tightness of things. So this is what we've been trying to do. This is something that I've been trying to explain, right? That we need to bring that into this in order to achieve something beautiful, in order to achieve the tightness that we do see on organic surfaces. And I also have another example of kind of the same thing, but I wanted to just do something more with that, I guess. So this is basically the same idea, right? We have two models. One of them is being this, another one is being that, right? So the only difference here is the difference here is the position of the lines. So here we have that, we have a mess. Here everything is optimized, right? Everything is streamlined, everything is even in some sense. And so I would argue that the point of any life and the point of any doing, of any endeavor, right, of any work, is to bring that into this. I know it's very general. I know I'm talking about some big things, but it is applicable to what we're doing, because we are creators, right? So we get to create things, and I think the ultimate position or ultimate place that we're going to go to is going to be this, with a caveat, and I'm going to talk about the caveat in just a minute, right? But I just want to point this, I guess I wanted to just make this point across one more time, that we are going from this to this. The problem here, though, when I said that there's a caveat to what we see here, the whole kind of streamline thing, right, to the evenness of the surface, or in this case the evenness of the squares. The problem here is that this is becoming just basic, right? There is no interest in here whatsoever, because everything is the same. So everything is equal in here. Everything is the same value. There's no good, there is no bad, there is nothing. There is just a plain surface. There's a plain structure of things, right? And just a order that is pushed to the extreme, right? And I think what we are and what we do as people and as artists is that we are either this or we are either that, right? So underneath everything, we are this. We are this perfect structure, right? This perfect creation. And sometimes we tend to go in all kinds of different directions, especially if we don't know where we need to be moving. So from this, we might get into that, right? When just life becomes too complex, too chaotic, right? So from this, we get into that. And so the point from here is to, well, go back, right? So go back to this kind of structure. The problem is, though, it's impossible. We cannot go from this all the way to that, because it just, well, I don't know how to explain it, but to me, it just doesn't work this way, because there was too many things that happened in here, right? And so going back to that would be somewhat of a waste. And so how all of this is applicable to what we are discussing here, to what we are doing here, right? To the character art and just the sculpting and sculpture. So the way I see it is that, first of all, we need to make sure that we're not in this place, but we also need to make sure that we don't end up being sterile in a way, right? And so what I think the next stage, or I guess the kind of the most natural way of just being, natural way of doing things and doing art, is that we need to put something like that. And what I'm trying to show here is that, like I said, underneath everything, or from the ground up, we are perfect creations, right? We are even, so to speak. And what I'm trying to show here is this is our uniqueness. And in the sense of art, or I guess in the subject of art, this is our style. So it's not that, neither is it this. Our style is that, right? It's just something that is common only to us as individuals. Because even though we are from the... If you enjoy this content or find it useful, please consider supporting me by buying me a cup of coffee via the link in the description. I guess on the foundation, we are all the same, but we are all different. And so no piece of art, if it's done, if it's coming from within, it's never going to be the same, right? It's going to be unique. And this uniqueness, those kind of things that I'm trying to point out here, just explaining something almost metaphysical, something philosophical, using some language of images. This is us. This is style. That's what style is. Style is not that, right? Style is not making things like this for the sake of making things like that, right? Style is not when we create in terms of sculpture, things exaggerated, right? Things just looking strange. Style is this. It's our own vision within the structure, right? Within the elegancy, within the beauty, within the perfection. It's in some sense, this is imperfection, right? It's just a drop of imperfection into the whole structure. And it's not a bad thing. I don't mean by saying imperfection that it's just ruining something. It doesn't ruin something. If anything, it creates even more beauty. Not necessarily beauty, I take it back. It creates some kind of interest that goes beyond just the word interest, right? It is uniqueness. Every single one of us, we are doing that. If we find ourselves, I guess, or if we stick to being ourselves, this is what we are doing, right? And no other person, nobody else will be able to do that. But it's still, like I said, it's within all of this, right? Even this kind of thing that I'm trying to point out here, it's still not doing that, right? Because this is just us not knowing and not understanding what exactly we are, who we are, and what we're doing. And this is once again, I'm trying to just point out that I am talking still about how this can be applicable to art, right? So we're not doing anything like that. Instead, we're being aware, thoughtful in some sense, right? And staying true to the nature of things. And the nature of things, I believe, is order. It's not chaos, right? It's not that. It's that. And within that, we get those beautiful things that are unique. And so if we look at some of the examples of a master who I consider to be, I'm not even sure how to put it. I think Michelangelo, and this, by the way, this is works by Michelangelo. I think Michelangelo has done everything there is to do with sculpture. No matter how strong that sounds, I think he went beyond everybody, and I think I'm not sure if he realized it himself, but I think he went so far that at the end of his life, he was making something so unexplainable that, well, I don't know how to explain. This is, for example, this is one of his pieces called Pietà. This is his second Pietà. Well, I don't know what the count is. Maybe he had done more of those, but the most famous of his Pietàs, there are three of them. The one with Jesus lying in the lap of his wife, of his mother. Then there is this one, and then there's the other one that he hadn't finished. He was working it until his last days. And if you see those things standing next to each other, and I was lucky to see that in a museum in Florence. But if you just Google that, right? If you Google his Pietas and if you put them chronologically, you will see that he went somewhere that, like I said, I don't know where he went. I just cannot explain what he was creating at that point. He just broke something, not in a bad way, but he is the ultimate genius in my opinion. But anyway, if we go back to what we've just been discussing, this is the example. This is the structure, order, beauty, right? And within that, there is Michelangelo. There is his, not necessarily vision, but his life, right? This is Michelangelo because he is Michelangelo. There is no things that stick out in here, right? There are no exaggerations. Well, there are exaggerations, but there are no things like that, right? There is nothing of this nature in what we see in Michelangelo's work. There is that, right? There is something that we recognize immediately as the foundation, and within that we get to see the unique quality of Michelangelo, of his life, right? And that's his style. All of that we see here within the sculpture, or the way it's done, it's his style because it's his life, right? So those are, in my opinion, just very good examples, and those are probably my favorite works by Michelangelo. If you get to be in Italy, if you want to just have your world flipped, get a ticket, go to Italy, go to Florence. I think this Pietà is in Milan, I don't remember, but just go to Italy and find his works. You will be changed. I guarantee that. And the other example, I guess, of a things being not in order, being chaotic, is this example. I was just trying to find out a design or creation that would kind of break my argument, right? That would be that, and it would be good, right? Something that is that makes us go like, oh wow, this is really something. I wasn't able to find it. Maybe I just didn't look long enough, but the example that I did remember was those creatures or aliens from Age of Tomorrow. And I think this is a very good example of things being as far from order, right, as far from this, and as close to that as they get, right? And whether this has been done subconsciously or this has been done thoughtfully, whatever the case is, this is just illustrates that everything that is quote-unquote bad, right, everything that is evil, has no structure in a sense. It's the going wild kind of a situation, right? The going wild as this kind of situation, right? Not this, but instead it's that. And if we just look at something else as well, and this might be just going a little bit too far, but let's go with it anyway. So I was thinking about the subject, and I was thinking about things that go too far, or they go out of hand in some sense, right? And I was thinking that perhaps cancer is exactly that, right? Because we when we look at the structure that is benign, that is not cancerous, things are in order, right? Things are placed together. And when there is a cancer, things they don't just spread, they create chaos. Things just break loose, right? And this is a very dangerous thought, perhaps, that I'm gonna just say right now, because it might, I don't want it to steer any bad, not necessarily feelings, but perhaps kind of me being ungrateful. But perhaps, perhaps maybe that things that happen to us, the terrible things that happen to us, the cancer and the other things that happen to us, they happen to us for a reason. Maybe it happens because we start to lose ourselves, right? Maybe we just lose ourselves to such a degree that we end up being somewhere here where things just fall apart, right? Where there is no direction, there is no way of make things clear. Everything is just falling, everything is just spreading. We are no longer us, we're something else, right? We're somewhere else altogether. And perhaps that causes for those things to happen. And like I said, I don't want it to sound like I'm being I don't know, almost judgmental, right? about this kind of scenarios when people do get to have those diseases and just terrible things happen to them. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to say that perhaps there's connection between all of those things, right? Everything, life, art, us, all of that, everything is just connected, and ultimately everything is pointing to, in my opinion, to that, right? It's the structure, it's the order, and within the structure, within that order, there is us, there is style, right? That is unique just to us, to our life, but it still needs to happen in a structure, right? In the perfect creation that is the foundation of everything. So that's something that I wanted to talk about. I think it's at least it's a conversation to have, and yeah, this all begins from just this, right? It just begins, in my case at least, it begins from observation. It begins from looking at things, just realizing that something visually, just purely visually, right? Just being an observer of things, just seeing how something is off. And when something is off, there needs to be a direction towards something to make it right? To kind of fix it up in some sense. And how do you make a direction when things are just wrong, random, right? And in my opinion, things always point to that. They always point to some kind of order and structure, which is beauty and elegancy. And so I was trying to, in some sense, explain some of that, explain some of the thought process, and how this is still practical. This is not just me talking for the sake of talking. It's all applicable, right? At least that's how I've been using this subconscious knowledge, and this is the first time that I've spoken it or just said it out loud, right? But this is what is happening inside of my head when I make something. It's all about that.